On June 11, 2026, a referee blows a whistle at the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. And at that exact moment, a money machine turns on. Not a small money machine. Not a modest one. One that will generate $80 billion in global economic impact. One that will make FIFA $13 billion in a single cycle. One that has already sold out every single corporate sponsorship slot in the history of the organization. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is not just the biggest sporting event in history. It is one of the most sophisticated commercial operations ever assembled on the planet. And today, we are going to follow the money. Every dollar, every deal, every winner, and every loser. I'm Michael Carter. This is CapitalClarion. Let's break it down. The scale, numbers that demand attention. Let's start with the numbers, because they are extraordinary. FIFA projects total revenue of $13 billion for the 2023 to 2026 four-year cycle, a 72% increase compared to the Qatar World Cup cycle. This may become the most lucrative sporting event in history. The 2026 FIFA World Cup could generate more than $80 billion in global economic impact. More specifically, projections indicate the tournament could contribute up to $40.9 billion to global GDP, support the equivalent of nearly 824,000 jobs worldwide, and generate approximately $30.5 billion in total output within the United States alone, boosting U.S. national GDP by $17.2 billion. For context, the Super Bowl generates approximately $800 million in economic activity for its host city. The Olympics typically generates between $3 and $5 billion. The World Cup generates more than 10 times that. FIFA estimates total costs for this World Cup, including expenditure from the organization, host cities and investors across the US, Canada and Mexico, will be around $14 billion. The US alone is expected to absorb more than $11 billion of that sum. Now here's the critical distinction that separates 2026 from every World Cup before it. FIFA has engineered a near-perfect commercial product, a 48-team tournament projected to generate up to $11 billion in revenue while avoiding the massive infrastructure costs that burden previous hosts. Qatar 2022? That tournament cost nearly $220 billion to build, and a lot of that infrastructure sits empty today. The US, Canada and Mexico already possess most of the required venues, nearly all operated by profitable professional sports franchises with established fan bases. The white elephant risk is substantially lower this year. This is the smartest financial structure any World Cup has ever operated under. FIFA gets the revenue. The host nations absorb the costs and get tourism dollars in return. How FIFA makes its money. Let's look at exactly how FIFA generates its $13 billion. There are four major streams. Television broadcast rights constitute FIFA's primary source of revenue. FIFA expects to generate $8.911 billion in its 2026 cycle, of which approximately 44%, around $3.925 billion, will come from broadcast rights alone. To understand why that number is so large, consider this. Telemundo, which holds exclusive Spanish-language broadcast rights in the US, has already sold 90% of its advertising inventory for the tournament. The company is seeing double the advertiser spend compared to the 2022 Qatar World Cup. Among the advertisers, Anheuser-Busch, AT&T, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Toyota, and Comcast. The tournament will be watched by over 5 billion people globally. Every single one of those eyeballs is monetized through advertising. When you sell 5 billion eyeballs to the world's biggest consumer brands, the numbers get very large very fast. The second revenue stream is ticketing and hospitality, projected to contribute approximately 34% of FIFA revenue, roughly $3 billion, driven by higher ticket prices and an increased number of matches from 64 to 104. More matches means more tickets. More tickets means more revenue. That 40 extra matches from the expanded 48-team format directly translates to an estimated additional $1 billion in ticketing alone. Third, sponsorship and marketing, expected to account for roughly 20% of FIFA revenue, approximately $1.786 billion. The tournament is predicted to hit $1.8 billion in sponsorship revenue alone, making this the most commercially successful tournament in the federation's history. FIFA confirmed that every global partnership tier has been sold out. Fourth, licensed merchandise including jerseys and memorabilia, forecast to generate $111 million in revenue. The corporate sponsors, who paid and what they get. Now let's talk about the corporate sponsor ecosystem, because it is more sophisticated than most people realize. FIFA operates a tiered commercial structure with three primary levels. The first tier, FIFA Partners, represents the deepest and most expensive commitment. These long-standing global brands include Adidas, Coca-Cola, Visa, Hyundai Kia, Lenovo, Qatar Airways, and Aramco. They hold rights across all FIFA competitions worldwide, not just the 2026 World Cup. This group plays the long game. Many have been involved with FIFA for decades. Their investment isn't about one tournament, it's about staying visible and globally consistent over time. What you'll see from them, constant global presence across broadcasts, stadiums, and digital channels. Messaging that leans into legacy and trust. The second tier covers FIFA World Cup sponsors, brands like McDonald's, Verizon, Michelob Ultra, Hisense, Lay's, and Bank of America. These partnerships are specific to the 2026 tournament and grant global rights including category exclusivity, stadium branding, use of official event marks, hospitality packages, and broadcast integration. Here is the business insight most people miss. The average cost for a Tier 1 FIFA partner deal runs into the tens of millions of dollars per year. But the return on investment from 5 billion global viewers is extraordinary. Visa processes transactions across all 16 host stadiums, exclusively. McDonald's gets exclusive fast food branding rights globally. Coca-Cola has a lock on every official beverage moment. Every official sponsorship slot for the 2026 World Cup has been sold out, making it the most commercially successful tournament in the federation's history. And for brands that don't have an official deal? Some of the most talked about brand moments in World Cup history have come from companies that paid FIFA nothing through what the industry calls ambush marketing. In 2026, the opportunity for non-sponsors to activate intelligently around the World Cup has never been larger. The winners, industries and companies that gain. Let's follow the money into the specific industries and companies that win the most from a tournament of this scale. Winner number 1. Hotels and hospitality. Key beneficiaries include hotel operators such as Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt, which are expected to see heightened bookings throughout the tournament. The food and accommodation sector could receive up to $2.4 billion in the US alone, with knock-on effects expected in real estate. 16 host cities across 3 countries. 5 weeks of matches. Millions of international visitors who need hotels, restaurants, transportation, and entertainment. The hospitality sector is the single biggest local economic beneficiary of any World Cup. Winner number 2, airlines. Airlines are expected to experience increased demand despite rising fuel prices. American Airlines is an official supplier of the tournament. But every major carrier, United, Delta, Southwest, Air Canada, Aeromexico, benefits from the surge in international arrivals. A tournament spanning 3 countries with 16 host cities requires more intercity flights than any previous World Cup. Winner number 3, broadcasting and streaming. The broadcast rights alone are worth $3.9 billion. But the downstream advertising revenue is worth far more. Every network that holds World Cup rights, Fox Sports, Telemundo, CBC, Televisa, is running at near maximum advertising capacity. Telemundo is seeing double the advertisers spend versus Qatar 2022, with 90% of ad inventory already sold. Companies buying those ads: Anheuser-Busch, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Toyota, and Xfinity. Winner number 4, sportswear. Adidas is the official match ball partner and kit supplier to multiple national teams. Nike supplies the United States, Brazil, France, England, and others. Every time a team wins a match, jersey sales spike. A deep US run in the tournament, playing on home soil for the first time in a generation, could generate hundreds of millions in merchandise sales domestically. Winner number 5. Host cities. Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and San Antonio are projected to see $3 to $4 billion in combined economic impact, cementing their status as global sports destinations. The New York region alone is projected to gain $3.3 billion. Dallas up to $2.1 billion. The losers and the skeptics. But not everyone is celebrating. Let's be honest about the other side of this story. According to an analysis from Danish bank Saxo, the headline figures flatter the actual impact, and experts on average estimate less revenue generation than FIFA's projections suggest. For the US, whose economy dwarfs most rivals, a projected $17 billion boost amounts to less than 0.1% of GDP. That renders the World Cup a marginal growth driver in terms of pure macroeconomic impact. The local loser? In many cases, local taxpayers. The majority of profits accrue to FIFA, while host cities bear the costs of venues, infrastructure, and security, making profitability difficult for individual cities to achieve. Security costs alone for 16 U.S. host cities across 5 weeks are estimated in the billions. Traffic infrastructure upgrades, temporary facilities, law enforcement overtime. These costs fall on local governments, not on FIFA. Mexico stands out as the relative winner of this trinational arrangement, with an estimated $3 billion in anticipated economic benefits representing between 0.2 and 0.5% of GDP. The influx of visitors carries greater visible weight in an economy more reliant on tourism and services. There is also an environmental critique worth noting. The carbon footprint of a tournament spanning 3 countries, with millions of fans flying between cities, is substantially larger than a concentrated single-country event. Some analysts have called this the most environmentally costly World Cup format ever designed. And the hosts will almost certainly go over budget. They always do. The investment angle, which stocks move. Now let's talk about what investors are watching. The World Cup has historically created identifiable patterns in stock performance for certain categories of companies. Here is what the data shows. Sportswear stocks, Adidas and Nike, historically see their best performance in the months leading up to and immediately following the World Cup. Jersey sales, equipment contracts, and brand exposure to 5 billion viewers drives revenue. Watch both stocks carefully through July 19th. Hotels and casinos, Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, MGM, benefit from the surge in room bookings across host cities. The premium is highest in cities hosting knockout stage matches: New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Dallas. Food and beverage, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Anheuser-Busch, all official sponsors. These companies receive premium brand placement across all 104 matches. The ROI on this kind of global exposure is difficult to quantify but historically positive. There is one more investment angle that most people overlook. The World Cup is expected to generate $30.5 billion in total output within the United States, with the accommodation and food sector benefiting the most, followed by real estate, wholesale, and retail. Real estate around host stadiums, particularly in cities like Dallas, Atlanta, and New York, has seen meaningful appreciation in the months leading up to the tournament. Short-term rental platforms like Airbnb are reporting record booking rates in host cities. The broader consumer spending boost also feeds into retail stocks. Flat-screen TVs, streaming subscriptions, sports merchandise, food delivery, all of these categories see measurable bumps during a World Cup that reaches 5 billion viewers. The long game, what this means for FIFA and football. Let's zoom out and understand what this World Cup means for the future of football as a business. The 48-team expansion is not primarily about sporting fairness. It is about revenue. More teams means more markets, means more broadcast deals, means more sponsorship dollars. FIFA understood this clearly when it made the decision. FIFA's $13 billion revenue projection represents a 72% increase versus the Qatar cycle. That growth rate, 72% in 4 years, puts FIFA in the same conversation as the world's fastest-growing media companies. The United States hosting a World Cup for the first time since 1994 is not a coincidence. The U.S. is the world's largest advertising market. It has the deepest corporate sponsorship culture. And soccer, football, is now the fastest-growing sport in America. The commercial alignment is perfect. What comes next? FIFA is already planning 2030, a tournament that will span 6 continents to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the first World Cup. And 2034, awarded to Saudi Arabia, which will inject state-backed billions into the commercial structure. The business of football is accelerating. And 2026 is the moment it became undeniable. Direct, confident closing here is the bottom line from CapitalClarion. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is generating $80 billion in global economic impact. FIFA takes $13 billion in revenue, a 72% jump from Qatar. Every sponsorship slot is sold. Telemundo has sold 90% of its ad inventory. 5 billion people will watch. The winners: FIFA, hotel chains, airlines, broadcasters, sportswear companies, and host city economies. The losers: local taxpayers who foot the infrastructure bill while FIFA takes the profits. The investment plays to watch: Adidas, Nike, Marriott, Hilton, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all official partners with 5 billion eyeballs watching their brands. And the bigger story: football has formally arrived as the world's most commercially powerful sport. Not baseball. Not American football. Not basketball. Football. With a capital F. The game kicks off June 11th. The money is already flowing. Subscribe to CapitalClarion. We'll be covering the business side of the World Cup throughout the tournament. Hit like if this breakdown helped you understand the money behind the world's biggest event. Drop a comment. Which company do you think wins the most from World Cup 2026? I'll see you in the next one.